All right, we're going to get started here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dan O'Neill, and I am the Vice President and Sales Group Leader of Personal Care here at Charkit Chemical. So happily, we are slowly but steadily emerging from the last year and a half of what was a tumultuous and uncertain time in the industry, and more importantly, our personal lives. We all changed the way we approach our daily routine at work and at home by wearing masks and increasing hygienic practices. While this was a necessity in the fight against COVID-19, it also left a mark on our faces, hands, and bodies without a doubt. Today, we're excited to present our latest webinar titled, It's a Skin-Demic, Combating the Issues of Pandemic Beauty. With us today, we have two expert speakers from Oat Cosmetics who will be discussing the effects of COVID-19 on skin health and some trends that are influencing the development of new formulations. They'll also take a deep dive into skin health, irritation, and moisturization, as well as look at a few natural, sustainable ingredients that can help replenish lost ceramides, aid in skin barrier repair, and encourage hyaluronic acid production. A little bit about Oat Cosmetics. They were founded in 2008 as a manufacturer, developer, and supplier of scientifically supported natural ingredients derived from oats. All their ingredients are produced using sustainable and recognized agricultural production systems to ensure quality, traceability, and sustainability from field to face. And since 2012, we at Charkit, and more recently LBB Specialties, have been partnered with Oat Cosmetics to offer these specialized oat-derived ingredients and actives from specific oat varieties that guarantee the highest level of skin-friendly molecules possible, which you'll hear about. With an innovative approach to new products, patented technology, improvement and consistency backed by science, all of these ingredients are tested at every step of the manufacturing process to ensure and adhere to strict specifications. Now, before we get started, I'd like to introduce today's speakers from Oat Cosmetics. First up is James Daybell. He's a graduate of the University of Leeds, which is part of the Russell Group of universities in the UK. After an early career in the technology industry, he joined Oat Cosmetics in 2015 to lead their marketing team. James is passionate about helping brands and consumers understand and utilize the power of oat-derived cosmetic ingredients, and he plays a key role in the strategic direction of the business. And Angus Robertson is the head of sales at Oat Cosmetics. Angus studied chemistry at Bournemouth University and later completed an executive MBA at Southampton Solent University. He started his career undertaking various laboratory and production management roles in the adhesives division of National Starch and Chemical. After 12 years, he migrated from technical to commercial and spent a further 11 years engaged as a sales and marketing consultant. In 2011, he joined Oat Cosmetics while still in its embryonic stages to develop the sales strategy and grow it into the commercially viable and well-known supplier to the cosmetics industry that they are today. So without further ado, again, thank you everyone for joining. It's my pleasure to turn it over to James and Angus for today's presentation.
Hi everybody, my name is James Daybell, Head of Marketing at Oat Cosmetics in the UK. I'm joined today by my colleague Angus Robertson, who's the Head of Sales at Oat Cosmetics. We're going to be talking to you about It's a Skin-Demic, combating the issues of pandemic beauty. So what are we actually going to talk about today? Well, firstly, we're going to look at the Skin-Demic. We're going to look at the skin and behavioural changes caused by COVID. What they are, how they damage the skin, and what this really looks like. We're going to look at product considerations and how and why the trend landscape has changed. And what does this mean for consumers? What behaviours are consumers going to take from the pandemic moving forwards? What's the trend landscape look like? What types of new products have been made? And what is the opportunity going forwards? And then finally, we're going to look at ingredients of the future and the essentials of skin well-being. How can we get back to and improve upon our skin condition post-pandemic? We're going to look at ceramides, the skin barrier, hyaluronic acid, dry skin and disrupted lipid barriers and maskne, and really how can we solve this in our day-to-day lives. So we start with behavioural changes and skin complaints. What has the pandemic brought about in terms of these, and what does that mean for our skin? So what are these behavioural changes? Well, we've seen a big increase in hand washing. A 2020 study by the US Centre for Disease Control and Prevention found that Americans were washing their hands twice as often as they did in 2019. We've seen an increase in the use of hand sanitizers. Sales of these types of products were up 14,000% versus the previous year. The wearing of face masks and coverings, that's also increased during the pandemic. US face mask production is up by 135 million per month versus the previous year. And then there's the indoor environment. People are more likely to stay at home, heeding the advice, not going out, not socializing. So in the UK, 60% of the adult population have been working from home during the coronavirus lockdown. So what that means is they're in a different environment. They're not exposed to the elements as much as they were previously. So what do these behavioural changes mean? Well, we've seen a big increase in skin complaints during this period. Contact dermatitis, which is caused by frequent exposure to a weak irritant such as soap or detergent, but it can also develop if you've been in contact with stronger irritant for a short while. Symptoms range from mild to severe and can involve any number of sort of itching, tightness, fine lines and cracks. Sometimes these even bleed. It can make your skin look slightly greyer and older and be rough to the touch. There's also flaking, peeling or scaly skin, all symptoms of contact dermatitis. And then there's acne, sort of a longer term skin condition, but it occurs when the dead skin cells and oil from the skin clog the hair follicles. And typical features of this include blackheads, whiteheads, pimples, oily skin, and this can lead to scarring. So what does this mean for the skin? Well, first of all, we have lipid barrier disruption. So the skin cells in the stratum corneum, the outermost layer of the skin, contain water-soluble compounds that absorb water from the lower layers. And each of these cells are surrounded by lipids, fats, which prevent water on the skin from evaporating into the external environment. Excessive washing and cleansing can rid the skin of this protective barrier, which normally functions to keep the skin supple and comfortable. But once that's exposed, it allows allergens and viruses to pass through that layer and disrupt the skin further down, as well as letting moisture escape from the skin, giving that feeling of dryness. So once the lipid layer is damaged, you get the dryness, redness and irritation. If we see on the left of this diagram, you've got the normal skin there where it's tightly packed keratinocytes forming a natural barrier. You've got the epidermis, the dermis and the hypodermis all in tune and working correctly. On the right hand side, you've got the development of dermatitis. So we've stripped off that top layer of lipids. That's allowing the penetration of allergens. Water is being lost and inflammation is the body response to that. The skin cells are less tightly held together and that causes more problems. So we mentioned acne as one of the possible side effects of the pandemic. Well, maskne is a term that you may well be familiar with. It's sort of come about because of the pandemic. It's essentially acne that's been caused by the wearing of a mask. So masks inhibit fresh airflow to the nose and mouth area, and breathing out creates a warm, moist microclimate which suits acne-causing bacteria. Now, lots of people have been wearing masks for hours and hours on end, so exacerbates the problem. It starts as in the early stage here, just an excessive secretion of sebum and a clogged pore, but it can evolve to whiteheads, blackheads, papules and boils, and eventually, if it's not treated, those boils can become infected and they can scar. So there really are long-term ramifications of this problem. So with all of these factors considered, what does this actually mean for consumers, formulators, and even the trends we see in the industry post-pandemic? So looking at consumers, they're looking for products which are gentler on the skin. And we see evidence there's been an uptake in the use of moisturizers, hand creams, and protective products. 40% of skincare users reporting products more often now than in 2019 for just this reason. And the use of standard products, cleansers, moisturizers, as well as exfoliators, scrubs and masks saw the most significant increase. So people washing their hands a lot, they're getting a lot of these contact dermatitis symptoms, they're purchasing products that will deal with this issue. But they've also had a greater awareness of what's in the products. They're more conscious of these skin conditions now than perhaps they were before. It started from a safety point of view at the beginning of the pandemic. People wanted to make sure what they were putting on their skin wouldn't actually harm them anymore. But it's grown to include hero ingredients now. Consumers are more aware of ingredients that are within a formulation that are proven to combat skin issues. And we look at sort of ceramides and hyaluronic acid, two hero ingredients that are now a go-to for dry and damaged hands. And we see this with a rise in sales of protective products. We've got the Halika Good Sera Super Ceramide Lip Oil Stick here, a product that's been designed and targeted to nourish and hydrate cracked and dry lips, mentioning ceramides there on the pack so that consumers are more aware of what they're getting. We've got a barrier oil for chapped and damaged lips. So a lot of these sort of niche targeted products have been created as a result of the pandemic, and they're seeing success. Consumers are buying them. They realize the benefits of these types of products. So what formulators have been trying to do in this period is create specific hybrid products that can cater for these new categories. So the top product here from Lucky Bamboo is designed to protect against mask chafing and maskne. So keeping the skin hydrated, stopping the redness and irritation caused by wearing a mask. And then separately, we've seen not just the ingredients in the product, we've seen how those products are applied. So a facial mist for lightweight hydration, the bottom set of products. The key here is that how the product's applied. So no longer you dip your hand into a cream and rub it into your face. You have a light mist that you can spray, so there's no contact. It minimizes transmission. Perhaps the biggest change we've seen, though, is the inclusion of specialist ingredients, which have been traditionally found in more over-the-counter, targeted, eczema-based products, being incorporated into more mainstream, everyday, daily use products. Here we have the FDA monograph skin protectant colloidal oatmeal, and this has seen a huge 35% growth in inclusion rates in 2020 compared to its average from the previous 3 years. So these real specialist skin-loving ingredients are being used every day. It's almost like people have taken the reverse, that don't wait for your skin to have a problem before you buy a cream to sort it. Use a cream every day that will help protect your skin and sort the problem, and then it won't develop. So what does this mean for the post-pandemic trend landscape? Well, the overall takeaway is that pandemic-enforced behaviour is here to stay. Existing trends will no longer be trends, they'll just be part of everyone's daily routine. Consumers are now more likely to look at the ingredients a product contains and base their purchasing decisions on this. They're aware of the benefits of multifunctional products and ingredients, and they're actually starting to link the pandemic with other global issues and trends. So climate change, for example, it's seen as a global issue, and that's something that consumers have taken closer to their heart during the last 18 months. Clean label and vegan beauty are becoming strong trends in their own right, and not necessarily with vegan beauty because they're vegan, more because they're associated with being healthy, being aware of what goes into your cosmetics and personal care products. So you mentioned climate change there. COVID has sort of focused everyone on global issues, climate change being one of them. And we're starting to see a growth, particularly in the younger demographics, of a worry and an understanding of the environmental impact their skincare products are having. Now, I also touched on vegan claims. Well, they're perceived as having a healthy, animal-friendly eco message, and they're actually the fastest growing facial care market in the Americas. So you can see alongside here in this graph with other fast-growing claims as vegan, eco-packaging, sustainable, eco-project, recycling. So what we've got, whilst there's not great numbers of launches, it's a growing trend, and it's something that's probably been accelerated because of the pandemic. So looking at all of those things, we've established the opportunity. There is really an opportunity there for formulators to incorporate multifunctional ingredients into new product types, or by reworking more traditional products to take these multifunctional ingredients into account. But they can only do that providing these ingredients have a proven skin efficacy and meet the trend requirements demanded by consumers. So naturalness and nature friendly, sustainable and eco, and can be used in vegan products.
Thank you very much, James. My name's Angus Robertson. I look after sales at Oat Cosmetics, and I'll be taking you through the next part of this presentation. James has stated very clearly that COVID has created some issues pertaining to skin health that are concerning many consumers. And by consumers, I mean us all. What I'm going to do now is show how skin damaged by excessive washing, sanitizing, glove and mask wearing can be restored using products containing safe, trusted, sustainable ingredients made from oat. We have used the term skin well-being. Well-being is defined by the Oxford English Dictionary as the state of being comfortable, healthy or happy. We all know that if our skin is inflamed, irritated or uncomfortable, it can have a tremendous impact on our overall outlook on life. So in effect, healthy skin is one of the keys to happiness. Skin is the body's largest organ. When healthy, its layers work hard to protect us. But when it's compromised, the skin's ability to work as an effective barrier is impaired. So what do we mean by healthy skin? It needs to be firm and with a smooth texture. It needs to be a consistent colour. Any blotchy, light coloured, dark or red spots are signs that your skin is a little worse for wear. It needs to be hydrated, not tight or dry or flaky. Healthy skin will have a good structure of cells, keratinocytes and corneocytes, all embedded in a lipid matrix comprising of molecules such as ceramides, phospholipids and sterols. Inside the corneocytes, the skin produces natural moisturising factor, NMF, a cocktail of molecules that the skin creates to keep the stratum corneum hydrated. These molecules include AHAs and hyaluronic acid. Any disruption to this structure can result in ingress of harmful substances and pathogens, or a loss of water resulting in dehydration. And one of the most significant factors to the detriment of skin health in recent times have been the protocols employed to reduce the spread of COVID, particularly excessive washing and the use of antimicrobial soaps and hand sanitizers. These protocols have stripped lipids from the skin, depleted vital ceramides and phospholipids, and impacted on molecules from the NMF, causing red, dry, uncomfortable skin for many people. So what I'm going to do now is look at a couple of these key molecules and show how the topical application of a product containing an oat complex called a Venoplex can help restore depleted levels. First of all, let's look at ceramides. Ceramides are epidermal lipids that are vital for skin barrier function. Most skin disorders that have a diminished barrier function are associated with both a decrease in total ceramide content and with differences in the ceramide pattern. Ceramides are an integral component of the lamellar structure that acts as a cement to secure the corneocytes and keratinocytes into the skin structure, like bricks with mortar. Their depletion reduces the firmness of skin and allows the barrier to be more easily penetrated. So, how does the Venoplex help enrich ceramides? A study was undertaken involving an in vivo application of a product containing 1% Venoplex. This was a long-term study conducted over an 8-week period using a group of women aged between 43 to 59 years old. The product was applied twice a day to one of the forearms of each subject. After the 8-week period, a sample of skin was taken and a slide prepared for both treated and untreated skin. Using immunofluorescence labelling of ceramides, an analysis was performed using transmission electron microscopy. The analysis showed that the application of the product enriched ceramide levels by 10%. This can clearly be seen from microscopy images. So the microscopy shows very clearly the immunofluorescence labelling of the ceramides, the yellow glow, and the nuclei staining, the blue patches, in the sections of the samples. The intensity of the fluorescence in the treated samples is significantly higher than in the untreated samples, showing an increase in ceramide concentration. Now, Avenoplex is a lipid complex fractionated from oat kernel oil. It contains at least 4% ceramides, many of which are skin equivalent or skin identical. What this study demonstrates is topical application of this ingredient at 1% in a formulation is enough to significantly increase ceramide levels throughout the epidermis. So, enriching ceramides is all very well and good, but what does that actually mean in terms of barrier function? Remember we said that ceramides are a key component of the lipid lamellae, and their depletion results in reduced barrier function. Well, using transmission electron microscopy, we can actually observe and measure the effect of enriching ceramide levels. In these studies, it was observed that the skin samples where the product containing the 1% Avenoplex was applied, we saw a 14% increase in the intercellular lipid lamellae compared with the untreated skin sample. So there is a direct correlation between increased ceramide levels and lipid lamellae. And you can see the effect of this with the microscopy. In the treated samples, the amount of intercellular lipid lamellae has increased, and the lipid lamellae show a more organised structure with smaller distances between the lamellae compared to the untreated sample. This indicates an improved quality of the epidermal barrier. Using the same technique, we also looked at hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is a highly cross-linked polysaccharide with the ability to be able to bind large amounts of water. In addition to binding water, hyaluronic acid is also important for cell growth, membrane receptor function, and adhesion. It is particularly localized in dermal areas where the skin cells are less densely packed, and it is also detectable in the lower levels of the epidermis. In young skin, hyaluronic acid is found near collagen and elastin fibers, whilst in aged skin this connection is missing. In addition, there is a physiological decrease in the hyaluronic acid content in aged skin. Now, the oat complex Avenoplex does not contain hyaluronic acid, but it has the ability to upregulate a precursor of this molecule called hyaluron synthase 3. So what does it actually do when we apply it to the skin topically? When the product containing 1% Avenoplex was applied to the skin, an increase of 14% hyaluronic acid compared to the untreated skin sample was observed after 8 weeks of application. This is a significant increase. Again, graphs are all very well and good, but pictures are better. Let's look at the microscopy pictures. Here we see the immunofluorescence labelling of the hyaluronic acid in red and the nuclei staining of the cells in blue. In both samples, the untreated and the treated, the red fluorescence labelling is clearly detectable in all the layers, right down to the basal layer of the epidermis. But the sample treated with the 1% Avenoplex product has more intensity of fluorescence throughout the section. This can be seen more clearly without the annotations or the nuclei staining, as you'll see in the next slide. So this shows very clearly that the hyaluronic acid concentration has increased throughout the epidermis. Remember, this product does not contain hyaluronic acid, but it stimulates its production, and it does so right down to the basal layer when applied topically.
Thanks, Angus. So here we're looking at a formulation focus of our recovery butter. So Avenaplex can be used in a wide range of products, and this luxurious body butter has 1% Avenaplex, and that rapidly repairs damaged skin and replenishes the lipids that are lost due to environmental aggressors and the use of oil stripping products. So even though it's a luxuriously thick product, it absorbs readily into the skin, leaving it non-greasy and non-tacky after feel. And really, upon absorption, you can really see the skin softening and becoming more comfortable. Before I move on, we've got a couple of questions, though, through the chat. Is there an advantage to ceramides being within a complex as opposed to being isolated? Well, absolutely, yes. Isolated ceramides are prone to crystallization effect, which hinders or even prevents them penetrating through to the stratum corneum. Because the ceramides in Avenaplex are in their natural environment, they're protected by the lipids in the complex. So as well as the naturally occurring antioxidants such as the tocotrienols, tocopherols and polyphenols, they stay in their natural form. They don't crystallize, and then that allows them to freely penetrate the stratum corneum and incorporate into the lamellar structure, as we've just demonstrated. Another question here. Is there an advantage over topically applied hyaluronic acid? That's a very interesting question. We know that topically applied hyaluronic acid is extremely effective, but it is important to control the molecular weight or you won't get that penetration. Avenaplex is stimulating the skin to create hyaluronic acid as part of the function, so we don't have this issue. The increase in hyaluronic acid concentration is occurring naturally and safely. And there is one other important difference. Topically applied or injectable hyaluronic acid is eye-wateringly expensive, and this in comparison is a low-cost ingredient used at 1% in a formulation. And another question sort of just relating to that, I can just add hyaluronic acid to my formulation. Why is this important? Yeah, you can do that, but as I mentioned before, it'd be much more expensive to do that than adding 1% of Avenaplex, not to mention all the other benefits that you get with Avenaplex. And final question before I move on, if we use this ingredient, can we add hyaluronic acid to the INCI list? Well, no, because the Avenaplex does not contain hyaluronic acid at all. But you can certainly make a label claim that this ingredient has been proven to increase naturally occurring hyaluronic acid. And I think that's it for now. I'll hand back to Angus.
We have previously stated that healthy, happy skin requires good barrier function. It needs to be hydrated, should be smooth and have an even colour tone. We've also indicated that excessive washing, sanitising and the wearing of masks can have detrimental effects, including skin damage resulting in redness, acne and decreased function. We've seen how an active ingredient derived from oat can enrich ceramides and upregulate hyaluronic acid. But can oat ingredients demonstrably improve skin condition in vivo? Well, the answer to that is a resounding yes. We undertook an in vivo study using our advanced colloidal oatmeal, OatCom USP. A cohort of 15 healthy adults were subjected to 2 skin areas on their volar forearms being irritated using a 0.5% SLS solution. One of the irritated areas was treated with a preparation containing 0.6% OatCom, the other with a control containing no OatCom. The test sites were assessed after 24 hours and 5 days, and the rate of recovery was compared. Analysis of the relative performance of the 2 formulations showed that the OatCom formulation, the transepidermal water loss values were significantly lower than those of the control formulation at day 1. This was indicative of an accelerated barrier recovery compared to the placebo formulation. We also saw a positive effect on skin hydration capacitance. The mean values for the corneometer measurement of skin surface moisture for the Oat Com formulation were higher than those with the placebo formulation during the study, suggesting that the Oat Com formulation has benefits in terms of skin surface moisturization. As with the transepidermal water loss data, there was a significantly increased moisturization benefit for the Oat Com formulation compared to the formulation without the Oat Com after day 1, indicating that the inclusion of the Oat Com enhances moisturization from first use. As well as transepidermal water loss and hydration capacitance, we also looked at skin redness, erythema. The mean value for the clinical assessment for the Oat Com formulation were lower than those for the placebo formulation during the study, with statistically lower values measured throughout day 1 to day 5. These data show the Oat Com formulation gives rise to visible improvements in skin redness from the first application and with sustained improvement relative to the placebo formulation. Another effect of COVID protocols is an increase in acne, or what is now called maskne. Can oat products help with this? Well, first of all, I want to state we do not make any anti-acne claims with our oat ingredients, but we have looked at them from a non-commodigenicity standpoint, particularly oat oil, our oat oil, oat lipid E, and Avenaplex. None of these ingredients will cause or exacerbate acne. And in the case of the oat lipids, we have observed decreases in key indicators, as this graph for Avenaplex demonstrates. This means oat products are excellent co-ingredients for anti-acne products.
Thanks very much, Angus. Another formulation now for you. This is a sensitive skin care cream that we've had made up by our formulator. It's gentle enough for everyday use, and it reduces redness and irritation whilst also hydrating and protecting the skin. Now this uses one of our ingredients, Oat Com USP, which is an advanced colloidal oatmeal. I mentioned earlier in the presentation we're seeing a lot of growth of these types of products that are proven, such as this, which has an FDA monograph, proven to help the skin, being put into more mainstream everyday products. And a couple more questions now before we move on. This one sort of relates to Avenaplex, but you state that this is an anti-acne product, but the data shows otherwise. Why? Well, I think that was a chart a couple of slides back. The reason we say it's because the reduction in the signs of acne we saw were not due to an antimicrobial effect. We think it's due to the ingredient protecting the skin sebum from peroxidation, and it's packed with antioxidants. We know it's got the ability to confer that protection to other oils in a system, but this in itself is not enough to make an anti-acne claim, which would be regulated by the FDA. And another question here, does the source and growing location of the oats make a difference to the ingredient? Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. The variety of oat used is very important. It's a bit like cooking, I'd say. World-class chefs use the best ingredients they can find in order to produce the flavours and characteristics that make their food so good. At Oat Cosmetics, we select varieties of oat that suit this application. So for colloidal oatmeal, our Oat Com, we use varieties with a high bran content because the bran is where the molecules such as beta-glucan and aviananthramides are produced. Our oats are grown in the Nordic countries because the agronomic practices in those countries are second to none in terms of traceability, social and environmental responsibility, and continuous improvement in best practice. And that's combined as well with the fact that the climate is perfect for growing the bran-rich oats we're looking for. We often get questions, can we just make the ingredients out of standard food oats? And the answer is no. Standard food oats are bred for a totally different reason. They have different concentrations of molecules. So our oats are tailored for cosmetics. And I think that's everything. No more questions. I'll hand you back to Angus.
There is no doubt that excessive hand washing can have a significant impact on overall skin health and appearance. Hands become dry, cracked and chapped. In order to overcome these effects, creams and moisturisers are often employed. So can the inclusion of oat help improve the performance of these types of product? Well, again, the answer to that is absolutely yes. A hand washing trial was performed to assess the ability of Oatcom, our colloidal oatmeal, to repair and replenish the skin. A cohort of volunteers were asked to compare a hand cream containing colloidal oatmeal and a placebo cream. For 4 weeks, the volunteers had to regularly wash their hands at least 5 times a day for 20 seconds using an antibacterial soap. After doing this for 1 week and applying no product, 50% of the volunteers were asked to apply the hand cream containing the colloidal oatmeal and the other 50% a placebo. They then had another week of washing with no cream, and on the 4th week, those that had tested the product with the colloidal oatmeal in the 2nd week were asked to use the placebo and vice versa for a further week. The results were conclusive. The product containing the colloidal oatmeal outperformed the placebo consistently, showing improvements in hydration, dry patch clearance and a reduction in damage and irritation.
Thanks very much, Angus. So, what have we done today? Well, we've reviewed the skin and behavioural changes caused by COVID. And we've seen that skin issues are more prevalent, but also that consumers are more aware of why they're caused and also which ingredients help prevent and protect them. We've looked at different product considerations and how COVID has brought about the change to the trend landscape, whereby a natural and more planet-friendly trends have really come to the fore. And we've seen new areas of innovation using proven and skin-friendly ingredients. And then looking ahead at sort of the essentials of skin well-being, we've just found that skin well-being is key and that actually oat-derived ingredients do provide a multitude of solutions. And as a final sort of takeaway, skin can be better than it was before the pandemic. And I think consumers will demand it. So it's just about the formulators using the right ingredients and the right trends to latch onto. The rest will follow. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. That was interesting. Almost made me want to go have a bowl of oatmeal, even though I know it's not the same strain of oats that we're talking about here, but that was great. So I did forget to mention, but obviously there is a Q&A session now, folks. So we're going to start with a few questions from the audience. And James and Angus, I am going to start with this question that someone had asked: what exactly is a Venaplex, and is it different than the oat lipid you reference in the presentation?
Yeah, I can answer that. So the Venaplex is a complex of lipid molecules from the oat. It's more concentrated than those found in oat lipid, but it's also classed as an active. So we have a much higher percentage of ceramides in there. There's 4% ceramides in a Venaplex, as opposed to being about 1.5% in oat lipid E. And there's a lot more phospholipids and other active molecules. And this actually gives rise to some very interesting upregulations of proteins, hence why we see this upregulation in hyaluronic acid. So putting it simply, oat lipid E is an oil with a very interesting profile, whereas a Venaplex is actually an active product.
Okay, very interesting. I hope that I hope that answered the question. To me, it sounded like it did. We're going to switch gears to a different product now. Another question that had come in was when formulating with OatCom, otherwise known as colloidal oatmeal, when is the best time to add it to the formulation, and how would you recommend doing so? I'll let one of you guys answer that.
Again, I'll answer that one. This is a very common question, actually. It's quite a difficult material to use until you know how to. The best way to add it is into the water phase, actually in the as the first addition, along with the preservatives and chelating agents. So you add it to the water cold before you heat it. Stir it well with fast stirring, not with homogenization. Wait until it's completely dispersed. It doesn't dissolve, it disperses. Make sure there's no lumps in there. Once you've done that, you can continue your formulation, your emulsion as you normally would.
Okay, and obviously if folks have further questions, we can always help them out, as they arise. That's a great start. Next question that came in, obviously, are you able to share more information on the studies that were presented?
Absolutely, we've got the full studies. Our data packs are freely available, so they're the first place to start. If someone wants more detail than what's in the data packs, we're more than happy to talk to them and share the original data. But the data pack's the first place to look for.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that kind of goes with the next question. We'll just tie it in quickly. People are wondering if the presentation will be made available, and the answer is yes. We will send it out, in due time once it's processed. And again, if you want more information on any of these products, please reach out to your sales rep at Charkit or another LBB brand, depending upon where you're located. Another question now that I'll throw over to you guys, back to Avenaplex. Is Avenaplex suitable for rinse-off cosmetics? That's a good question. Can we await a noticeable positive effect of it?
It has not been tested on rinse-off products. The tests we've done have really shown an enrichment of ceramides and the upregulation of hyaluronic acid, and it does take a while for those effects to take place. So at the moment, the answer to that is we don't know. We are intending to undertake some rinse-off studies, but the other thing to bear in mind, this is an active and comes in at an active price. So you'd have to think very carefully about what type of rinse-off products you would want to use it in.
True. Yeah, that's expensive water going down the drain. But not so expensive when you look at the volume. You mentioned the percentages for efficacy. So there was a quick question which I can answer. I'll throw in there. Someone was looking for the MOQs, and I think currently we have a 5 and a 10 kilo pack size available. And again, we encourage anyone to request samples to formulate with this material. So, but the typical standard pack size is 5 and 10 kilos. On to the next question. It's still pertaining to the Avenaplex. Is Avenaplex oil soluble?
It is actually an oil-based material, so it's an anhydrous material. It is very, very polar. It contains a large percentage of polar lipids, which means you have to get the HLB sort of balance right on it. So it can be oil soluble, but primarily its use is in emulsion type technologies. But you can mix it with other polar oils, like for like.
So you would recommend, I guess, when formulating with it, it would be, in the oil phase using an emulsifier?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, perfect. And remember, folks, if you're still having questions, feel free to type them in. We do have a few minutes left. We're trying to get to them all. now, but just know that we will. If we don't get to them today, we will answer them post presentation. Next question that came in was again regarding Avenaplex, popular ingredient. The Inky name. Please let me know the Inky qualitative and quantitative composition of Avenaplex. And again, from a sales standpoint, we could send out the information, but I'll let you guys go with that.
Yeah, that's a really easy one. There's only one name in the Inky name, and that's Avena sativa kernel extract. And there's nothing else in the composition there.
So it's interesting because the Inky name is the same across a few of your ingredients, correct?
Not across our ingredients. The Inky name of Avena sativa kernel extract is used in a number of different ingredients. It's the only one that we have with that Inky name because it simply means something that has been extracted from the Avena sativa, the oat, which is exactly what this is. So it's an oat extract from the oat kernel.
And it's actually, it's sorry to interrupt you, but it's actually one of the things mentioned, and I know emphasis these days is on simple formulas. Where less is more. So when you have less Inky names on the back of an ingredient deck, it's nice to have that simple and clean Inky.
And can I just add, Dan, that we do test every single batch for ceramides, phospholipids, and all the naturally occurring molecules. So you can still make label claims without overcomplicating the Inky list.
Okay, very interesting. Another one just came in. Which polar oils would you recommend using with Avenaplex?
I don't actually know the answer to that offhand, but what I'll do is I'll ask one of our in-house formulators and get back to you on that.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question comes in. Are you working on waterless formulas or with a water replacer? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, we see that this is a big trend. Obviously, with Avenaplex and our Oat Lipid E, they are anhydrous products and they can be used in waterless formulations. So we are very aware of the waterless trend, and we do have two ingredients that work very well within those types of formulations.
Okay. Let's see here. The formulary. Okay, so these were you presented a few sample products. And they were one of the attendees was wondering, can it be found? Are you able to send this out? Can we get samples of the products which you showcased? I mean, are you able to share the formulas and send samples of those, or were they for descriptive purposes only?
Yeah, I'll take that. Thanks, Dan. I mean, all of our formulations are on the website, oatcosmetics.com. With regard to samples and things, I expect that's best to talk to Charkit or LBB for those types of things.
Okay. Yeah, so we can provide those here and again, we will be sending out written responses to these questions, folks. So if you do want further samples or more information on individual products, just feel free to ask. Next question actually is from the same person. When Avenaplex is blended with very low molecular weight hyaluronic acid, does it work faster to increase the HA in the stratus corneum and basal layers? I don't know if that was a mouthful, but I'll let you guys try to answer that one.
Okay, well, I think the simple answer to that is we don't know. We have never actually blended it with hyaluronic acid. the mechanism by which we see an increase in hyaluronic acid is one that occurs when the avenoplex migrates through the stratum corneum and stimulates the production of hyaluronic acid. So the answer to that question is we don't know. How's that for honesty?
There you go. That's good. Hey, honesty is the best policy, right? Let's see. There was another. Okay. Oh, what is the solvent used to extract these ingredients?
The crude oat oil from which avenoplex is made is extracted using a cellulose-derived ethanol. But the process by which it's made means that all of that is removed. So it's initially extracted using ethanol, but there is only parts per million of it remaining in the final product.
Okay, thank you very much. These questions are coming in very, very quick here. Are there any irritation or allergic reactions from avenoplex during any of the studies you presented?
Absolutely not. And we have also done a series of patch tests which show no irritation whatsoever. And again, those are available for people to examine.
Okay, yeah, and I guess, in thinking about it after I read that question, really, I mean, the purpose of these ingredients is to reduce irritation and allergic reactions.
Absolutely.
So I guess, next question came in. Is avenoplex, I think you already touched on this, but is avenoplex 100% Avena sativa oat extract? And I believe the answer is yes.
Yes, it is.
Right. Simple inky, simple formulas with great results. Next question. Do you have guidance as to when to use avenoplex, the OatCom USP, or Oat Lipid E as an ingredient? And I'm not quite sure what they're talking about as far as guidance. I'm not sure if they're talking about at what part of the formulation or into which types of products, but I don't know if you could maybe hit on both those topics.
Well, we certainly have formulation guides which will tell you how to use it, when to incorporate it, and what suitable operating temperatures are. As for when to use it, that's when you need to talk to your Charkit LBB rep, and they will give you advice on which is the best ingredient to use for your specific project.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, again, so for everyone listening and asking questions, we greatly appreciate it. And as always, this is just a touch of information that's available. Oat Cosmetics has done such a good job as far as putting forward information on oats as they pertain to skincare, which is one of the reasons we were so excited to partner with them so many years ago. Because up until then, most of the studies, everyone knew that oats were great for skin. When you got poison ivy, you took an oatmeal bath. But beyond that, they really put the science behind skincare and as it pertains, or oats as it pertains to skincare, because pretty much everything else out there was just a byproduct of the food industry. So I don't see any more questions that have come in at this point. Again, we will be making the presentation available. I don't know, Angus, did you have any comments? And then I'll send it back to me. Or James.
As in?
Well, just some final closing notes on the products and the presentation.
Yeah, okay. We do actually.
I'm putting you on the spot, sorry.
So no, that's fine. No, I'm used to that. We do have on file all the regulatory information that's needed for all of our ingredients. The studies that we touched upon in the presentation are supported by many other studies as well. And as you say, Dan, we do have a very comprehensive understanding of how our ingredients work, and we'd always be delighted to talk to people about them and provide all the supporting evidence that we have, so you can be confident to use them in your formulations.
As would we. So we're happy to always set up conferences, Zoom calls, etc., which we've done over the last year and a half. But I guess in closing, I wanted to thank everyone for attending. Hopefully, you know a little bit more about these ingredients and the effects on this pandemic skin, some of the pandemic skin problems that we've all seen. I do want to remind everyone there is a survey at the end of the webinar. If you'd be so kind as to fill that out. We do enjoy bringing these webinars to you folks, and we just want to make sure that we're doing it right. And if there's any specific topics, etc., or anything, how we can improve it, we're always delighted to know. So I think with that, Angus and James, thank you very much. And we bid you folks goodbye.
Thanks very much, Dan. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attending.
Thank you.